and it's a great league. And it's a great sport for fans to watch. And like you said, there's only one team that's going to win. And there's going to be teams that you respect that don't win.
Yep.
But there's so much parity in the NFL because of the cap reasons. And there's the fact that, one team, look at Cleveland. They won one game in 2 years and all of a sudden win 7 this year. Who would have thought it?
Yeah.
It's parity. I'm telling you, it's a salary cap, but that comes in a personnel standpoint is who are you going to re-sign, what are you going to pay him, and are you going to deal in free agency and pay a lot of money? Because you only have so much to pay. So every team's on the equal balance. Every team's right there. So the good personnel people identify and get it right. Draft well, re-sign your own, and go forward.
No, exactly, and I do really like the selection of LaFleur and Green Bay. Again, I just think that the combination of just kind of his offensive kind of ingenuity, and the fact that he has has the connections, has been successful wherever he's gone. I think that's intriguing, and obviously Green Bay having Aaron Rodgers, having the offense they have, to me, it's a really nice fit. Kind of like what I mentioned before. With Bruce Arians and Jameis Winston, Mike Evans, in Tampa Bay. I'm really intrigued by that. The other one I'm intrigued by, and this is because I want to be counter, and I like the idea of old school. You and I are defensive guys, and Fangio in Denver, and I'm never. I do like the idea of going with a young coach. That's the way the league is going right now. I get that. But also, as you just said, Scott, it's a big part of the teams that are successful, the teams that can kind of recognize their own talent and build around that. And there's no question in Denver, the talent's on the defensive side of the ball. And so I'm very curious to see how the Denver Broncos are going to figure out their offense and actually be able to score points, especially when you look at the offenses that are going in that AFC West division. But at the same time, when you have the pass rushers that the Broncos have, and Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, and by the way, Shane Ray, and all these different guys they got. They are still loaded on defense, and somebody's got to be able to play some defense in that division. And so I'm intrigued by that one as well. And to me, I like the selection of the coach. I think he fits in with their team. I'm just very curious, honestly, to see if John Elway is going to be able to find a quarterback. Because if he doesn't, then I know who's going to, get the fall. It's going to be Fangio and the coaching staff. But I am intrigued by the fact that a former Hall of Fame quarterback, John Elway, decides to go on the defensive route yet again. And I think it's kind of fascinating how he's going with this. And I just am a big believer in Fangio.
Yeah, no, I like Fangio a lot. I don't know him personally. I've seen his product for a long time, and he's a really good D coordinator, really good. I know people that know him say he's a great person. He's a leader of men, and that's huge. Now you could point out 16 to 20 teams that need a quarterback.
Yep. Good point.
Is Denver one of them? Certainly. They need somebody to come through and be successful? Certainly. And nowadays, as you're well aware, and all the people that are listening are well aware, it's an offensive-minded game. It's all for points. It's all defensive penalties, and it's all for scoring points. And which is what it is. It's the same for everybody. But I think Fangio will do a good job. I know from people I know that know him well that he's legit football guy. And that's what you need, because he's got to stand in front of that room, on Monday mornings after a loss and say, listen, we're staying status quo, man. We're going straight forward. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. You lose 2-3 in a row, you need him to stay consistent. And I've been around coaches that have been that way. They're like, no, they're pointing fingers at people.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. And I can't see Fangio doing that. I know Elway well, and he means well. He just hasn't been finding a quarterback.
Yeah.
He just hasn't, and that's tough. We're lucky enough in Cleveland last year to have the first pick in the draft. So we think we found the quarterback quarterback that's going to be special going forward. You know, you never know. You never know. They signed, Keenum, and they thought they had their guy, and maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe they do. But there's a reason why, there wasn't all the time production and consistency at that position in Denver.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. And like with specifically with Case Keenum, I mean, like that's a player I was not very high on, and I have to kind of give Denver and Keenum some credit. I mean, he played better than I thought he would this year. Now, obviously, they didn't make the playoffs. Obviously, their head coach got fired, but you could make the argument that Denver lacked skill position talent besides quarterback. And you give him some receivers, obviously they. They just have some. That's a team that definitely needs some help on the offensive side of the ball, and I think that's what's going to make this whole draft process so fascinating for them, and the free agent process as well. I mean, you don't bring in a 60-year-old head coach and decide to do a complete rebuild. I think that they feel like they have some talent in place to be able to kind of hit the ground running. To me, they're going to be one of the more fascinating teams to kind of look in that way. One thing you mentioned, Scott, that I meant to talk about earlier, and we kind of ran out of time in last week's episode. But another buddy of ours, Mike Mayock, he jumped into now he's the general manager of the Raiders, and he made a comment, that he was kind of overwhelmed by just the fact that, all the different duties that come with being a general manager. And you just talked about some of it, Scott, as far as being a head coach. You have to stand out there and you can't start calling out names if you have a loss or two or three. In last week's episode, we talked about, like, say, Frank Reich, who we thought was one of the coaches that deserved Coach of the Year recognition because his team did start off 1-5. And while they obviously are now no longer in the playoffs, it just really was remarkable the way that the Colts kind of turned their season around. Can you, as far as with Mayock and other general managers, since obviously that's a role that you played, what are some of those other jobs, those other things that can kind of distract you from the fun stuff, from the evaluating the talent? I mean, what are some of the things that, life as a general manager that the public doesn't see?
Well, I can tell you a lot of things, but which is fine. The thing about it was, like, I think I said this in a past episode. There's a fact that I had to be in a vice president / president meeting, ownership meeting, every Tuesday during practice. That's when they scheduled it. So I'd sit there, and my back's towards the practice field. And I could hear the whistle blowing. I could hear the horn blowing. I could hear the players cheering. And we went through so many things that didn't mean anything to the product on the field whatsoever. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not here to be a vice president / president. I'm here to build this roster, through and through. Yeah. And the way I do that is by watching practice, making transactions, free agency, drafting well, and then we're going to be okay. And everything you guys are talking about will take care of itself if we're winning games. The fans will come, the billboards will show up, the sponsorship will show up, but we have to win games. And sitting in here, from my standpoint, is not helping this team.
Yeah.
Now I'd watch a practice tape afterwards and all that, but still, I always like to see it in person.
Yeah.
See how guys are reacting, see, what the trainer's saying about certain guys with injuries. Instead of walking downstairs and being in the training room, I'd rather sit on the field and talk to all those guys. But it's a lot of stuff. It's PR, it's marketing, ticket sales. It's so much stuff goes into it, and and I was young, and I didn't know anything about ticket sales. I didn't know anything about billboards. I didn't know anything about the color of the fabric of the freaking seats at the new stadium. No, I know football. I know football players, and that's sad, but it's all I know, and I think I'm okay at it, and to sitting there and hear my guys behind me practicing and me not being with them as a family, I didn't like it.
Yeah, I can hear you. That's I wouldn't like that either. Wow, I didn't realize that. And that's to have the meetings while practice is going on. I've known you long enough. I can only imagine that would not be a happy thing for you. So I wouldn't like that either.
Yeah, they're family. They're my guys.
Exactly, and they can see it because you're there. Exactly.
Yeah. You're not saying, of course I control the roster and free agency and draft and all that, but still, they want to see my face. I want to see their face.
Yeah.
I want to see how they're doing. I want to see how their wives are doing, their kids are doing. Just a little thing. Is your wife good?
Yeah.
That means so much to them.
It absolutely does. Yeah.
I'm sitting in a boardroom with my back turned towards it.
Discussing what type of upholstery for the couches or the seats. Wow.
For the new stadium seats.
Wow.
What color? I could give a rat's ass. I'm sorry. I could care less.
Yeah, exactly. No, I hear you. It's funny, most of the games I've gone to over my life have, of course, been in the Seattle area, and it's been fascinating to me how some of the things I've heard, that GMs and team presidents and directors of scouting, some of the questions that they're asked and the things their jobs outside of, again, the talent evaluation, what I think is the fun part of it. It just kind of boggles my mind. So that's yet another good example. I will remember that one.
Oh,
yeah. Okay, well, we only got a few more minutes left of the show. And, of course, everybody wants to hear our picks, and they're going to be running off to Vegas or anywhere else they might be doing, considering how hot you've been, Scott. So, I was doing pretty good for myself. I was 3-1 last week, but I made the huge mistake, and you laughed at me when I did it. And I said I thought that this might be the end of the Bill Belichick and Tom Brady run. And then after about 5 minutes of watching that game, I realized that wasn't the case. I almost texted you during the game, and I thought...
he had 23 first downs in the first half.
Wow.
I'll tell you this much.
Yeah.
I'll make it short and simple from my standpoint. I'm taking the 2 first ballot Hall of Famers.
That's what I thought you might do, and I can't argue with that. To say that Tom Brady is going to beat Patrick Mahomes, and so it's going to be the Patriots, and then it's going to be Drew Brees, and so Brady Brees. I mean, there can't be much of a more exciting Super Bowl kind of matchup than that. That certainly would be fascinating. I think that there's a lot of people out there who are, kind of rooting for the idea of somebody new. And so the idea of Patrick Mahomes against, Jared Goff and the Rams would be fascinating. I mean, to me, this has almost got to be for the NFL as far as just making money. This has got to be their favorite championship setup that possibly could be. I mean, because it is going to be 2 exciting, kind of points scored kind of games. And I think that seems like that's what the NFL wants right now.
Oh, no doubt about it. And I'm telling you, I respect all 4 teams.
Yeah. Got
where they are for a reason. But I'm telling you, you got 2 quarterbacks that have been there and done it.
Yep.
Both are world champions. Both have won playoff games. Both have been through adversity. And I just, I could be wrong, but I'm not betting against those guys.
No, I hear you. I mean, it's it wasn't just, and Brady, of course, deserves so much credit, but just Belichick, to me, his ability to change the game plan to really, take advantage of his team, obviously, but also the deficiencies of the other team. I mean, like you said, with Brady and his 23 first downs, and by halftime, it was so much those short dink and dunk passes that completely eliminated the Chargers pass rush. And that was a big part of my argument was that Bosa and Ingram would get to Brady, and because they have the lack of experience, frankly, that New England had along the offensive line this year, and yet they still were able to do it. To me, that's Brady, that's Belichick, and I look at Kansas City specifically, and while they have the elite speed that is Tyreek Hill, and obviously Kelsey as well. Belichick